I have Bridget Todd here on the podcast. She is a podcaster with There Is No Girls on the Internet. She's a fellow at the Berkman Klein Center at Harvard on Internet and Society. She's worked with Mozilla, worked in tech, and a commentator. And the last time we met was at 3 a.m. at a bar, in a hotel bar in Barcelona, where we were showing up for MozFest. And so it was almost like that conversation by the bar could have been this podcast. So now we get to actually record it and put it on camera. And so I'm so excited to have you, Bridget, and get to talk to you.
I'm so excited to be here. I had the exact same thought about that 3 a.m. Barcelona bar conversation. If we had had a recorder, could have been a podcast. Would have been very interesting.
Vine shut down at the end of 2016, beginning of 2017. Now we have an entire world of social media apps. We have an entire world of video apps. We have massive monetization. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry. What have we learned from that? Like it's come to dominate culture. It's how people reach an audience.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is that all of us are hungry for what feels like real, authentic connection and conversation. I hate to use the word content, but I guess I will. I think that Vine, there was something about it that really facilitated that. I ask myself this all the time. TikTok is also short form video content, right? I've seen TikToks that are as short as Vines were. Why does it not hit the same way? And I just think that what it taught me is that people are looking for something that doesn't necessarily feel like they're being sold to, that feels like this is a genuine peek into my actual lived experience, and you can sort of, connect with that in some way. And as we kind of increasingly go into this landscape of AI, I'm really curious what that's going to look like, because there was a time where short form video content of animals doing cute things, that was how I reset my brain. I just want to watch some bunnies doing something cute. With AI, I feel like
cat videos on the internet.
Yeah, cat videos on the internet. Well, enter AI into the equation, and now I'm like, I can't trust that any of these are real cats doing cute things. It's completely turned me off of a kind of content that I've been enjoying for like decades, because I'm like, I feel like every time I see an animal video, it's an exercise in my own critical thinking of whether or not this is AI generated. And so I'm very curious to see what this means for the video content landscape more broadly.
Yeah, I mean, I think people don't realize how unsettling it is to constantly having to question the reality you're perceiving.
Yes.
The social media was built on the idea of this sort of this authenticity, this participation that you get to be in people's lives. And we know that, yes, there's a camera there. Yes, there's recording. Often people are editing. They're trying to put together a story, but it was like, you felt like it was authentic and you wanted to believe it was authentic. And now with the AI generated content, we're like, is it still human? And like, can I believe anything I see? And that's just incredibly unsettling. It's blown me away how strong the disconnect is between the Silicon Valley discourse, which is convinced that AI is this amazing thing and we're about to, achieve a new era of super intelligence, and everybody else's reaction, which is abject horror.
Yeah. And I have to say, it is completely, and I'm curious if you feel this way or anyone listening feels this way. It has turned me off of video content. When I am like scrolling TikTok or scrolling Reels, it just is starting to feel like it is not worth it to me. It's not, it's not worth my time. If the stuff that is showing up on these platforms wasn't worth a real human sitting down and making it, why would it be worth my time as a real human who's busy and has my own stuff going on to engage with it? And so I just am getting a real distaste for video content because of this. And what's also interesting is earlier today, I was doing an interview with the person who was essentially my boss at iHeartRadio, who runs the podcast division over there. And they recently rolled out this new initiative called Guaranteed Humans, where they say, hey.
I heard that on your podcast.
Yeah. So I just did an interview with Will Pearson, the head of podcasts at iHeart, about that initiative. And what's interesting to me is that iHeart is a real leader in the space, right? we talked for quite a bit about how important it is to respect and affirm creativity as something that is done by humans for humans. All the warm, fuzzy stuff that gets me tingling as a podcast creator. But also, iHeart isn't going to do something if it's not going to be good for business. They have also clearly sat down and said, hey, our audience is telling us overwhelmingly that what they're looking for from engaging with our content is trust, intimacy, all of the things that
human connection.
Exactly that. And so it would be a bad business decision to turn away from that. And so I think that a major audio player like iHeart doubling down on humans at this time, I think really says a lot. I have felt very respected there as a creator. They definitely respect creativity and human creativity, but they would not be making this move if they had not looked at the numbers and said, this is going to be a good business decision as well.
You know, and it's interesting since I announced Divine, TikTok said, oh, well, we're going to add a setting that lets you click a button and filter out AI.
Stop.
And Instagram said, we're going to go add a setting that shows you what your algorithm settings are and everything else. And, you know, I almost feel like, you know, that's similar to those platforms saying like, oh, yes, here's a way in which you can click on see the chronological feed. And then, you know, 2 months later, they make it so that you can't stay on that, or,
yes,
you know, they bury it in the feeds, or they automatically turn it off on you.
Yes, and let's think about what we know about TikTok today, right? I just wrote an op-ed about this. Today, there is oftentimes like really inflammatory AI-generated video content on TikTok. Clear as day, it'll have the Sora watermark right on it, or the Google like VO watermark right on it. So this is not content where people are trying to get one over on you. Like it's clearly labeled, this is AI. And yet you go to the comments and you have people being like, oh, can't believe this happened. Can't believe this happened. And this content gets like millions of views, some of it. And so just clearly labeling content and giving people whatever controls that these platforms are saying that they're giving people to like put it in your hands as the viewer or whatever. Clearly that's not working. Like that dynamic is not working. And I think it's why I'm so excited about what you all are doing with Divine right out of the gate, saying, hey, line in the sand, no AI. It's like going back to the before times where when you were just waking up in the morning and scrolling your social media feeds, you didn't have to have your, you know, super high res critical thinking hat on all the time. You could just enjoy the internet in peace for once. The idea of being able to go back to that is genuinely thrilling to me.
Yeah. You know, the funny thing is like even when we know it's AI, even if you see it there, the neuroscience of it is not so simple. Like we know that if you imagine a meal, if you like go through the process of imagining a meal in your head and you think about the food and how it tastes and arrangement of the plate and who you're eating it with and everything else. And if you walk through the process, your body triggers all of the biochemical reactions to as if you had eaten, and you will feel the sense of the food and you will feel full. And so you know that you're not actually eating the meal. You know that you are going through a process of visualizing the process of eating the meal, but your body doesn't know that. Our minds can't really tell the difference between what we're imagining and what we're experiencing. And so that happens with the AI stuff where you're like, okay, I know this AI content is not real. I can see the Sora watermark. I can see these things. I can see the like extra fingers or weird hand pointing out things, or just, it doesn't quite right, but it does this confirmation bias. And I know you've talked on your podcast a way in which a bunch of this like racist content and other things are confirming people's confirmation biases, even when they might know it's fake.
Absolutely. And like, I just did a whole piece about when we were having the whole conversation about the administration cutting people off from SNAP and food assistance, right? And when that happened, almost immediately, TikTok was flooded with these clearly and like labeled AI generated videos that purported to show, you know, entitled, angry people. Many of them were Black women, so like very racialized and gendered there. But these angry people flipping out in grocery stores and saying like, who's going to take care of my kids? Yada, yada, yada. After scrolling through video, like after video of this for like a few hours, Then in my real life, I went to the grocery store, and for a hot second, I was like, this is a much more kind of normal experience than I've been seeing everywhere. And I had to take a step back and say, wait a minute. I just spent 2 hours looking at fake AI generated content of so-called entitled food stamp recipients losing their minds at grocery stores. That was all fake. That was fake AI generated people for me to be mad at in my head. But I still had the physiological response of almost expecting to see that when I went into my local grocery store in real life. And yeah, it makes so much sense that we have the same kind of physiological mental experience of something, whether or not it was AI generated. Like you feel it in your bones in a kind of way. You internalize it.
A lot of what happens with social media is we have these parasocial relationships with the people we're talking to. When back in the day when we first were prototyping Twitter, I used to joke that it was, a social media app. We didn't call it social media app, like an app for keeping your friends up to date with the things that weren't important enough to tell them when you got together for coffee. So this ephemerality and stuff, that was really, it ended up playing out. And so now, of course we use it for politics and organizing and culture and all these other things, but we also use it to feel part of other people's lives.
Oh, that's so true. I have this memory. This is such a tangent, but years and years and years ago, me and my friend group, it turned out we were all following the super specific minutia of some ridiculous celebrity drama happening on Twitter. It was Samantha Ronson, the DJ, having a breakup with Lindsay Lohan. And I remember it turned out me and my friends were all watching this unfold on Twitter. And one of them, when we got together, said something like, how did anybody ever follow lesbian breakups before Twitter? It's the perfect platform to follow, to keep abreast of this. And I thought, yes, it's great for figuring out important stuff, like what's going on in your town. Is there an emergency? But also, I'm not going to be the person texting my friend about, hey, are you seeing what Sam Ronson is posting about Lindsay Lohan? But the fact that we were all in real time, play by play following this. And when we got together, we could actually talk about it. It just was a really telling experience of the usefulness of this platform.
So much of society says that is gossip, or that is, low value because it's a kind of speech and a kind of social engagement and connection that women tend to do more, or women and queer people tend to do more. And yet it isn't valueless. Actually,
right.
It is really important for constructing meaning and social relationships and negotiating where society is going.
Exactly that. And it's just so funny, the kind of discourse that we devalue and then the kind of discourse that we attach value to.
So the way in which we value and disvalue discourse, it's super interesting because, for myself, having been involved with various different elements of creation of social media, I've always seen it as deeply rooted in a political project, in an activist project. It is a process of democratization. And, I even end my podcast, which, paraphrasing Subcommandante Marco, saying we need a social media revolution to make revolution possible. And you've talked a lot about the way in which social movements have used these platforms. How do we come together and identify things, and what stories do we take? How do we make them viral? And then how do we construct new conceptions of it? Me Too and Black Lives Matter, all of these things grew around hashtags.
Yeah. And it's something that genuinely my life would be meaningfully different if not for Twitter, right? Like in a tangible, real way. I don't mean it in the hoity-toity, squishy way. Like genuinely my life would be very different without Twitter. And I am a little bit concerned because I wonder, in today's tech landscape, could the next Me Too, could the next Black Lives Matter, could those same impactful movements take off like they did in today's tech landscape? I genuinely worry if the next iteration of a social movement that could be changing the life of a version of me, that's 10 years younger, is not going to happen because of what our landscape is like today. And that's the kind of stuff that kind of keeps me up at night.
Yeah, how do we go from outrage to organizing? Mm-hmm. Because, yes, there was outrage. Yes, there were viral stuff. Yes, that stuff's been there. but social media that wasn't quite so algorithmically driven and that included a stronger conception of follower relationships. It had problems. It was harder to build up an audience. It was harder to be discovered, but it made taking things from outrage to organizing easier.
Absolutely. And like, I feel like today, outrage is everywhere. There's always opportunities to be outraged online. I have been outraged just since I woke up this morning. I have been outraged no less than a half a dozen times. But that second part, the organizing, I feel like that's the thing that is having a harder time breaking through. And you're absolutely right that I don't want to get too nostalgic, like the earlier days of the internet were perfect. Just so happens those are the days that I was coming of age on the internet. Isn't it funny that in my mind, I'm like, oh, it was all great. But I think that we kept the outrage, but then lost the thing that was said, that was like, okay, so what are we going to do about this? Okay, what's next? Okay, who's starting the Google Doc? Or what's the action that we should take in connection with this outrageous behavior that I feel in my bones?
Because outrage is just the inspiration. And I feel like so much of what we have is a set of outrage behavior, which is like, there's a lot to be outraged about. But in some ways, the outrage is driving off of moral panics. It's, we've got AI-driven slop that plays on people's outrage that isn't even based on things that are real. This very weird conception from the existing platforms that they should optimize for a certain kind of engagement and the amount of time you're in it. Like, if everybody who comments on a video is pissed because it's AI, and they don't want to see it, why are we creating algorithms that say, well, that's an indication that we should show it to more people?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's why showing up online just doesn't feel the same anymore. I've really had to do some personal work to kind of divest from a lot of stuff like this online that fills me with outrage, and then I see more of it. It's a very unhealthy, toxic relationship that I felt quite locked into for a long time, and it's hard to wrestle not wanting to just be a cog in that dynamic anymore, with also wanting opportunities to organize, wanting to stay informed, and I think that's really the kind of gamble that we're facing here. Is if I say every time I scroll TikTok, I'm being surfaced content that enrages me, and all the comments are people outraged. If I say, okay, I'm not going to be there anymore, what am I losing out? I don't think that these are the questions that people should have to wrestle with in a well society with a healthy media ecosystem.